You know, in the world of technology, there's this huge clash of ideas constantly happening. It's a battle between two completely opposite philosophies. On one side, you've got the idea of sharing code openly, for everyone to see, use, and improve upon. And on the other, you have the concept of legally owning a digital idea or process. This is the code war, open source versus software patents. So, how in the world did we get here, and what does this fight really mean for the apps and programs we use every single day? Let's get into it. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on the two opposing sides, open versus closed code. Then, we'll jump on our time machine and look at the revolution that kicked off the entire open source movement. After that, we'll explore the rules of sharing, the licenses that actually make this all work. We'll see how massive projects are built using a model called the bazaar. And finally, we'll tackle the big one, the collision with the world of software patents. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Every piece of software you've ever used, from your phone's operating system to a video game, basically lives in one of two different worlds. I want you to think about this for a second. When you open up your banking app to check your balance, what are you actually looking at? You see the logo, the buttons, your account info, but what's the magic happening behind the curtain? Are you even allowed to peek? Well, for that banking app and most commercial software, the answer is a hard no. You're dealing with proprietary software. It's basically a black box. The company gives you the finished product, the thing that runs on your phone. You can think of it like a fully baked cake. But the recipe, the actual source code that tells the computer what to do, that's a closely guarded secret. On the flip side, you have open source software. This is like buying a house and getting the full architectural blueprints along with the keys. The source code, the recipe, is completely public. Anyone can look at it, learn from it, find mistakes, suggest improvements, and even share their own modified version with others. It's a fundamental difference in philosophy. And you know, this choice to share the blueprints instead of locking them away wasn't just some technical preference. It was a full-blown philosophical revolution. To really get it, we have to rewind a bit. Back in the early days in the 70s, in academic and research labs like AT&T's Bell Labs, sharing source code was just normal. It's how people learned and collaborated. The original Unix operating system was passed around, which is how UC Berkeley was able to create its own famous version. But then, in 1983, a huge shift happened. AT&T was broken up, and suddenly it started looking at Unix not as a research project, but as a money-making product. They slammed the door shut and locked down the source code. That very same year, a programmer at MIT named Richard Stallman saw this as a huge betrayal of the collaborative spirit of computing, and he decided to do something about it. He launched the GNU project with the ambitious goal of building a completely free alternative. Stallman's whole argument hinged on one really crucial distinction. When he talked about free software, he wasn't talking about the price tag. He was talking about liberty, about your rights as a user. As he famously put it, you should think free as in speech, not as in beer. The point wasn't to make everything zero cost. The point was to give users fundamental freedoms over the technology that was becoming so important in their lives. And he didn't just leave it as a vague idea. He defined it with what he called the 4 essential freedoms. Freedom 0 is simple. You can run the program for any reason at all. No restrictions. Freedom 1 is the big one. You have the right to see the source code and change it, to make it do what you need it to do. And then freedoms 2 and 3 make sure you can share the software with others, both the original version and your new modified versions. The key takeaway here is that these freedoms put the user, not just the original creator, in control of the software. Now, these are great ideas, right? But ideas are just ideas unless you have a way to enforce them. And in the world of software, that enforcement mechanism is the license. These are the legal rules of the road for sharing code. Stallman's most brilliant invention here was a concept called copyleft. It's a clever, almost cheeky twist on the idea of copyright. Normally, copyright is used to restrict what people can do with a work. Copyleft flips that on its head. It uses copyright law to guarantee user freedoms. The main rule is beautifully simple. If you take a piece of copylefted software, modify it, and then share it, your new version must be released under the exact same copyleft license. It's like a virus for freedom. It ensures that the software and any improvements made to it will remain free forever. So this idea splits the open source world into two main camps. On one side, you have what we call permissive licenses, like MIT and BSD. Their main goal is to get the code used by as many people as possible. You can take this code, stick it inside your own closed source proprietary app, sell it, and you don't have to share any of your secret changes.
On the other side is copyleft, and its most famous example is the GNU General Public License, or GPL. Its primary goal is totally different. It wants to protect the digital commons. If you use any GPL code in your project, your whole project now has to be GPL. You can't mix it with proprietary code. You have to share alike.
So, which philosophy is winning out in the real world today? Well, the numbers tell a pretty clear story. Permissive licenses like MIT and Apache are by far the most popular. And it makes sense, right? Businesses love them because they can use all this amazing open source code without having to open source their own secret sauce. It's fueled this incredible explosion of software development. The stricter GPL is still a huge player, but the trend for years has definitely been leaning towards the more permissive, do whatever you want style. Okay, so we've got the philosophy and the legal rules down. But what does this actually look like in practice? I mean, how do thousands of developers scattered all over the planet manage to build something as mind-bogglingly complex as an entire operating system like Linux?
Well, there's a famous essay that came up with this brilliant analogy. It compares two different ways of building software. First, there's the cathedral model. This is the old school way. A small group of brilliant architects works in secret, planning every last detail. Then, after years of work, they release their perfect, finished masterpiece to the world. A lot of the early GNU projects were built this way. Then, there's the bazaar model. This is completely different. Imagine a noisy, chaotic, sprawling marketplace. Development happens right out in the open. Everyone is shouting ideas, testing things, fixing things, all at once. It looks messy, but it's incredibly fast and resilient. And this is exactly how Linux was built.
And this bazaar is a really rich and diverse ecosystem. Yeah, you've got the core members at the center, the original creators who guide the project's overall direction, but they're surrounded by an army of external contributors who send in bug fixes and cool new features. The users themselves are a critical part of the process, acting like a giant free quality assurance team. And more, you see big corporations and foundations sponsoring these projects with money and developers. It's this living, breathing system that works because of a simple, powerful idea. Given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. And now we get to the heart of the conflict. The entire open source world, this whole bazaar of ideas, is built on the free exchange of code. But it's on a collision course with a completely different legal system, one that isn't about sharing ideas, but about owning them. I'm talking, of course, about software patents. Okay, this is a really important distinction to understand. Copyright is one thing. When you write a piece of code, you automatically own the copyright to that specific text, that specific expression of your idea. But it doesn't stop someone else from writing completely different code that accomplishes the exact same goal. A patent, though, a patent is a different beast entirely. It's way more powerful. It doesn't protect the code. It protects the idea or the process itself. If you get a patent on an algorithm for, say, one-click checkout, you can legally stop anyone else from using that method, no matter how they write their code. And you have to actively apply for it and get it granted by the government. And this is where it gets, well, controversial. Take a look at some of these things that have been granted as actual software patents in the past. Using a computer to run a game of bingo, ordering a pizza with custom toppings online, sending a notification when something is picked up. To a lot of programmers, these don't sound like radical new inventions. They sound like obvious things to do with a computer. And yet, each one became a piece of legally protected territory, a minefield that another developer could accidentally step on. The legendary game developer John Carmack, the creator of Doom and Quake, captured the core fear of the programming community perfectly with this quote. He said, "The idea that I can solve a problem and wind up with a program that could not be legally used because someone else followed the same logical steps and filed for a patent on it is horrifying." And it is. It means you can be punished for simply thinking logically and independently arriving at a good solution. On top of that, the system is incredibly expensive. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars just to file for a single patent in the US. And that's before any legal fights or trying to get protection in other countries. This creates a huge power imbalance. Big corporations can afford to build massive walls of patents, while individual developers or small startups are left completely exposed. And this whole situation has spawned a particularly nasty business model: the rise of patent trolls. These are companies that don't actually build or sell anything. Their only business is to buy up portfolios of old, often very vague patents, and then sue companies that are actually making real products. They don't want to go to court. They just want to scare companies into paying a settlement to make them go away. Many people see them as nothing more than a tax on genuine innovation. Which brings us right back to the central question of this whole debate. The original goal of the patent system was to protect inventors and encourage innovation. But when we look at the modern world of software, a world that has been built on open collaboration, rapid iteration, and sharing ideas, you have to ask a serious question. Are software patents still serving that purpose? Or have they become a weapon that's actually stifling the very innovation they were created to protect?